What really happened in room 1046? America's most puzzling hotel mystery. The hotel phone rang just after 7 a.m. inside room 1046. The operator had been trying to reach the guest for nearly an hour. But this time, when a bellboy knocked on the door, he heard a faint voice say, "Come in." The door was locked from the outside. When the bellboy used a master key and stepped in, he froze. The man inside, naked, bound with cords around his wrists and ankles, blood smeared across the sheets, was sitting upright on the edge of the bed. The room was dark, lit only by a small lamp on the nightstand. The man's face was pale, and his body was covered in stab wounds. "Who did this to you?" the bellboy whispered, trembling. The man lifted his head slowly and said something that sent chills down the worker's spine. "Nobody did this." Seconds later he collapsed. The hotel worker rushed for help, but by the time the police arrived, the man was unconscious. He was taken to the hospital, still alive, but barely. And that was the moment Kansas City police realized this was no ordinary hotel incident. The man had checked in under the name Roland T. Owen. But that name, as detectives would soon learn, wasn't real. The address he gave didn't exist, and the phone number led nowhere. Who was he? Why had he come to room 146? And why did he insist that nobody had done this to him? Now, let's go back to how it all began. It was January 2nd, 1935, when the tall, dark-haired man walked into the hotel president in downtown Kansas City. He wore a black coat and carried no luggage except for a small comb and toothbrush. He spoke little but was polite. He asked for an interior room, something without windows facing the street, and paid for one night in advance. The clerk gave him room 1046. From the start, his behavior puzzled the staff. When the maid entered to clean the next morning, she found him sitting quietly in the dark with the shades drawn. He asked her to leave the door unlocked because he was expecting a friend. Later that day, she came back again, and he was still in the dark. When she noticed the phone off the hook, she tried to fix it, but he stopped her. "Don't touch that," he said sharply. His voice was low, and his expression cold. That evening, a hotel guest next door heard strange noises coming from room 1046. Muffled voices, a loud thud, then silence. Around 10:30 p.m., a woman was heard laughing in the hallway, followed by the sound of a door clicking shut. At midnight, the switchboard operator noticed that the phone in room 1046 was again left off the hook. She sent a bellboy up to check. When he knocked, a voice from inside said, "Come in," but the door was locked. Thinking the guest might be drunk, the bellboy decided to return later. By 4 a.m., the phone was still off the hook. Another bellboy went up and let himself in with a master key. What he saw then would later haunt him. The room was completely dark except for a dim light from the hallway. The man, Mr. Owen, was lying naked on the bed, the sheets crumpled beneath him. His head was bleeding, and there were deep marks around his wrists and ankles as though he had been tied up. He was alive, but barely breathing. Blood dripped down the walls, pooling onto the carpet. It was clear he had been tortured. Detectives later found no sign of robbery. His clothes were gone, along with anything that could reveal who he really was. The room was wiped clean of fingerprints. Even the hotel glasses were missing. And yet, as investigators searched for clues, they found something strange, a small label from a necktie and a single unsmoked cigarette left in the ashtray. When the detectives questioned him again at the hospital, he managed to whisper just one more thing before losing consciousness forever. He said, "I fell against the bathtub." But everyone knew that was a lie. And just when police thought the case couldn't get stranger, a mysterious woman began calling the funeral home days later, insisting that she wanted to pay for the man's burial. She refused to give her name. Then, on the day of the funeral, flowers arrived with a note attached. It read, "Love forever, Louise." Who was Louise? Who was the man calling himself Roland T. Owen? And why did no one ever come forward to claim him? The answers were hidden somewhere in room 146. And what the police would discover next would change everything. When detectives returned to room 1046 later that day, the hotel had already been cleaned. The bed sheets were gone, the walls scrubbed, and the strange, chilling traces of the night before erased. But the investigators were determined. They went over every inch of the room again. That's when they noticed something strange. One of the hotel glasses had been found in the hallway trash can, broken, with dried blood on the rim. The crime scene made no sense. There was no sign of forced entry. No one had seen anyone leave the room, and the elevator operator swore that the only person he had taken to the 10th floor that night was a nervous man wearing a brown overcoat. Police were sure Roland T. Owen was not his real name. They sent his fingerprints to the FBI, hoping to find a match. But the results came back with nothing. The man had no record, no identification, and no one came to claim him, even after newspapers across America published his photo. Then, 2 weeks later, a new clue surfaced. A woman from Alabama contacted the police after seeing the photo in the paper. She said the man looked just like her son, Artemis Ogletree, who had left home months earlier to find work. The timeline matched, and so did the description. The wavy dark hair, the scar on his scalp, and the strong jawline. Police reached out for confirmation, and soon the truth was revealed. The mysterious guest was indeed Artemis Ogletree, a 17-year-old who had vanished while traveling through the Midwest. But this only deepened the mystery. Why had he used a false name? And who was the mysterious Louise who sent flowers to his grave? Investigators began piecing together his last known movements. Witnesses at another Kansas City hotel claimed a young man matching Artemis's description had stayed there earlier with a tall man who went by Don. He was described as well-dressed, smooth-talking, and controlling. The two men argued frequently, but Artemis seemed afraid of him. And then, one night, they both disappeared. Now the name Don was on everyone's lips. Hotel staff recalled hearing Don mentioned several times in room 146 before the attack. A woman on the same floor said she heard a man angrily say, "Don, stop it," followed by a loud crash. When detectives went through the police reports, they found something shocking. A call had come into the Kansas City police station a few days before the discovery, from an anonymous woman who said she feared a man named Don was holding someone captive in a downtown hotel. But no one had taken the report seriously at the time. As the investigation dragged on, reporters nicknamed it America's Most Puzzling Hotel Mystery. Decades later, experts would still be baffled by how one man could be tortured and killed in a hotel room without anyone seeing the killer leave, or even enter. One theory suggested that Artemis was involved in organized crime, possibly lured by promises of work that turned deadly. Another theory claimed he had been caught in a love triangle gone wrong, explaining the strange involvement of Louise, but none of these theories fit perfectly. Then, just when the case began to fade, another twist came in 1936, almost a year later. A Kansas City newspaper received a call from someone claiming to know the truth about what happened in room 1046. The caller spoke calmly and said, "Artemis Ogletree isn't dead. He's fine and safe." Then the line went dead. Detectives traced the call, but it led nowhere. The number couldn't be identified. And yet, a week later, another letter appeared, typed and unsigned, saying, "Don't believe what you hear about room 1046. He left Kansas City alive." The police didn't believe it, but the letter had a postmark from New York City. Could it be possible that someone was still trying to cover up what really happened in room 1046? Was the killer still out there? Every clue seemed to lead to another dead end, until a hotel employee came forward years later with something shocking, something the police had missed entirely. He said that on the night of the murder, he saw two men leaving the 10th floor around 4:15 a.m. One of them was wearing a brown coat. The other was taller, with slicked back hair, and carrying a black leather case. When asked what he thought was inside the case, the man paused before answering. He said, "It looked heavy, like it was hiding something important." And that statement would reopen the entire investigation. Because inside that case, detectives believed, was the key to solving America's most haunting hotel mystery. What was inside the black case? And who was the man carrying it? The answers would take this mystery from Kansas City all the way across America. Don't miss it, because the truth behind Room 1046 is more shocking than anyone ever imagined. For months, the Room 1046 case stayed cold. Files gathered dust. Detectives retired. But the mystery of what happened in that small, dimly lit hotel room refused to die. Then, almost 2 years later, a breakthrough came, not from the police, but from a woman who worked at a boarding house in New York City. She claimed a man had stayed there in early 1935 using the name Don. He was polite and well-dressed and always nervous. But what caught her attention was the black leather case he carried everywhere. He never let it out of his sight. One evening, when he left in a hurry, he forgot to lock his door. Curious, the woman peeked inside and froze. Inside the case was a bundle of letters tied with string, each one addressed to Artemis Ogletree. Every letter ended with the same signature. Yours truly, Don. The woman turned the letters over to police, who confirmed the handwriting matched the mysterious notes and typewritten messages sent after Artemis's death. It was the first solid link proving Don had been real, and possibly the last person to see Artemis alive. The letters revealed something even darker. Artemis had been writing to Don for months before his death, and the tone suggested Don had total control over him. One letter read, "I'll do as you ask. Please don't be angry this time. I promise I won't talk to anyone." Another said, "I'm scared, Don. You said it would only be for a few days." The final letter, dated just a week before Artemis checked into the hotel president, read, "If anything happens to me, Don will know why." When detectives traced the paper and ink, it matched a typewriter sold in Kansas City, near the hotel. But Don had vanished. No fingerprints, no record, no real identity, just a name whispered in the dark. By 1937, the case was officially closed, labeled unsolved, yet rumors never stopped. Some believed Don was a mob enforcer. Others thought he was part of a secret society that punished those who broke its rules. A few even claimed Artemis was a runaway who knew something he wasn't supposed to know. Every theory had holes. Every clue led to another question. Still, the strangest part came decades later, when the hotel president was being renovated in the 2000s. Construction workers found a hidden compartment behind one of the walls near room 1046. Inside was a small metal object, an old hotel key tag, rusted but legible. It read, 1046. Wrapped around it was a strip of faded cloth, blood-stained. To this day, no one knows how it got there or why it was hidden, but it reignited public interest, leading journalists and true crime enthusiasts to dig deeper. Theories resurfaced, new documentaries were made, and once again, America found itself asking the same haunting question. Who was Don, and what really happened in room 1046? Was it jealousy, a cover-up, or something much bigger, something powerful enough to silence the truth for nearly a century? The room no longer exists, renovated into modern offices. But some say at night, you can still hear faint knocking sounds on the 10th floor. And when the wind rushes through the old corridors, it almost sounds like a voice whispering. Nobody did this. The case of room 1046 remains one of America's most chilling unsolved crimes, a reminder that some secrets never stay buried. Because in that room, nearly 90 years ago, something happened that no one could explain, and no one ever will. And that's the truth behind room 1046, America's most puzzling hotel mystery. And that's the truth behind room 1046, America's most puzzling hotel mystery. If you were hooked by this real-life crime story and want to uncover more mysterious, unsolved cases from across America, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support helps us bring you more true stories that the world has almost forgotten. And if you think you know what really happened in room 1046, share your theory in the comments below and share this video with someone who loves true crime mysteries as much as you do. Stay curious and stay tuned for the next chilling real crime story.